I don't need to tell you that 2020 has been a crazy year for the coffee industry. But as things start to recover, it's time to take stock and understand where the industry is going in the next 5 years. In this video, I'll take you through the top 3 key trends to look out for and to jump on if you're to be sustainable in the near future. Right after this. Hi, it's Adam Carr here from the Coffee Science and Education Centre at 7 Miles Coffee Roasters. We started this report about a year ago, and the idea or the main aim of this report was to really capture what the next 5 years might look like, so we will know what kind of machines that we should be buying to put into cafes and restaurants, our own cafe for example, how we should be roasting coffee, what people wanted in a roast inside their coffee, and many other things of that nature. Now obviously in the meantime, COVID-19 has come through, a pandemic, and that caused a delay in many ways in the report. We were literally about to release the report at the beginning of the pandemic. But now that we're coming through it, I won't say we're on the other side of it yet, we've determined that actually a lot of the things inside this report are talking about implementing change. And there's never been a better time to implement change in an environment such as this. So from the research, we found that there are 3 key trends that are going to influence cafes or coffee shop sustainability in the immediate future, moving towards 2025. The first is automation. The second is craft and cuisine. And the third is fast and slow coffee. So let's talk about automation first. Automation refers to quite literally anything that happens in a cafe and restaurant that could be done by a machine. Now for a long time at 7 Miles, we've believed that the future of coffee is going to be baristas that know more about their craft and have a higher degree of interaction with the customer. In other words, it's going to become more of a hospitality-focused role than a machine jockey type role. And we're already seeing this happening with the technologies we've seen in the last 5 years. So for example, the puck press is a great example, or the Uber Milk, automated compression of coffee grounds into a portafilter, or automatic generation of steam milk. Well, we think in the near future, a lot of people are going to be implementing machines that combine all of these things into one. We already have 2 or 3 machines in the industry that have been brought out in the last 2 years even, that can do this. A couple of great examples are the Eversys Cameo and the Scanomat Top Brewer. Is this the kind of technology that's going to be in cafes and restaurants across the next 5 years? Well, we actually think the answer is yes. And that is either as their primary serving technology or the primary machine that they use to serve coffee, or as a secondary machine to serve fast coffee, which is obviously the third trend we've talked about. So I suppose one of the questions here is why now for automation? If some of these technologies exist already, why aren't they selling like hotcakes? Why aren't they everywhere? Well, then there are a couple of reasons for this, but I think there is one really big driver as to why we think this is going to take off in the next 5 years. And that has largely to do with the fact that cafes and restaurants are finding it more and more difficult to retain staff in their cafe. We found that for over 45% of respondents in a fairly large-scale survey that we did, one of the biggest fears and insecurities that cafe owners have in their businesses is retaining and training new staff. Most baristas, by the time they're really, really good, tend to move on, in other words. Introducing automated systems means you can get coffee of a consistently good quality regardless of the person that you actually have right behind the machine. Now, that doesn't mean the person behind the machine isn't still important. The barista arguably will become ever more important in the future. And not just in the way of tasting coffee to make sure it's tasting the way that it should be and to make changes on the machine, but also to be able to communicate tastes and craft to the person that's coming in to buy the coffee. Relationship with customers has never been more important. One of the things we've identified in the last 5 years is that we've actually reached peak coffee in Australia. So the per capita growth of kilos of coffee consumed per year, it's quite literally flatlined. And in fact, for the last 2 years, it's completely flatlined or even gone down. And yet, we've seen an increase in the revenue brought in by the cafe and coffee shop industry. So what does this mean? Where is that revenue coming from? Well, it's food. And for, I suppose, a number of years, most savvy operators have understood this, and they've increased and bolstered their food offerings to run a more successful business or a more sustainable business. So that's why we think craft and cuisine are especially important across the next 5 years. So with the increasing focus on food, one might start naturally thinking about how to increase their service offerings. So a business model that might traditionally have been a breakfast and lunch service entering into an evening service. So you might do breakfast, lunches and dinner. And then you start to think, well, maybe if this is both a coffee and a food service is running all day, maybe we're now a restaurant, not a cafe. So I think in the future, we're going to start to see a sort of blurring of the lines, if you will, between cafes and restaurants. Not sure the names will necessarily change, but effectively the function will be very, very similar. So the third thing here is fast and slow coffee, or even fast versus slow coffee. So let's qualify what we mean by those things. So fast coffee refers to a person literally grabbing and going. The 7-Eleven $1 coffee model is a good example of this, but there are other ways that it can be utilized. Slow coffee refers to quite literally the sit-down experience. You know, we want to be cocooned from the outside world, we want to sit down, we want to relax, we want to enjoy, we want to socialize. It's kind of the traditional coffee shop, coffee house. It's existed for many years, it's a fantastic place to hang out. So fast or slow coffee, fast and slow coffee, what should I be doing in my business? Well, I guess the answer is it depends. But for sure, you need to be doing one or the other or both very, very well. Okay, you cannot be stuck in the middle somewhere and keep it nebulous that you do sort of a slow, you do a fast-ish coffee and it's an okay place to hang. We suspect you may be in a bit of danger there. But you can, if your space facilitates it and your market clearly seems like, there is many places where this could happen, right? You could do both. So you could have a lightning fast espresso window and an amazing customer experience that has great couches, has places where people can hang and can connect, and has an exceptional food offering. You can definitely do both. There is great potential to be able to do that. And I think actually some of the better cafes probably will do both. So that's a taste of what we found in Cafe 2025. But we'd be very interested to hear what you think is going to be a big trend in the next 5 years and what you think is going to happen and what cafes and restaurants and coffee shops might look like in the near future. I'm Adam Carr from the Coffee Science and Education Centre here at 7 Miles. Have a good one.